The War of the Worlds, October 30th, 2022. The Timeless Broadcasting System presents The War of the Worlds by H.G. Wells. We now know that in the early years of the 21st century, the world was being watched as closely by intelligences greater than man's, yet as mortal as his own. We now know that as human beings busied themselves about their various concerns, they were scrutinized and studied, perhaps as narrowly as a man with a microscope might scrutinize transient creatures that swarm and multiply in a drop of water. With infinite commonplace, people went to and fro over the earth about their little affairs, serene in the assurance of their dominion over this small spinning fragment of solar driftwood, which by chance or design man has inherited out of the dark mystery of time and space. Yet across this immense ethereal gulf, minds that to our minds, as ours are to the beast in the jungle, intellects vast, cool, and unsympathetic, regarded the earth with envious eyes, and slowly and surely they drew their plans against us. In the 23rd year of the 21st century came the Great Delusionment. It was near the end of October. Business was terrible, and the war scare was on. Men were openly losing money, and sales had plummeted. On this particular evening, October 30th, the Crosley service estimated that 32 million people were listening on their radios. For the next 24 hours, not much change in temperature. A slight atmospheric disturbance of undetermined origin reported over Nova Scotia, causing a low-pressure area to move down rather rapidly over the northeastern states, bringing a forecast of rain, accompanied by winds in a light gale force. Maximum temperature 66 degrees, minimum 48. The weather report comes to you from the Government Weather Bureau. We now take you to the Meridian Ballroom in the Hotel Park Plaza in downtown New York, where you'll be entertained by the music of Ramon Raquello and his orchestra.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. From the Meridian Room at the Park Plaza in New York City, we bring you the music of Ramon Raquello and his orchestra.
Ladies and gentlemen, we interrupt our program of dance and music to bring you a special bulletin from Intercontinental Radio News. At 20 minutes before 8 Central Time, Professor Farrell of the Mount Jennings Observatory in Chicago, Illinois, reports observing several explosions of incandescent gas occurring at regular intervals on the planet Mars. The spectroscope indicates the gas to be hydrogen and moving toward the Earth with enormous velocity. Professor Pearson of the observatory at Princeton confirms Farrell's observation and describes the phenomenon as, quote, like a jet of blue flame shot across a gun, unquote. Now we return you to the music of Ramon Raquello and playing for you in the Meridian Room of the Park Plaza Hotel, situated in downtown New York.
And now a tune that never loses favorites, Ramon Raquello and his orchestra.
Ladies and gentlemen, following on the news given in our bulletin a moment ago, the Government Meteorological Bureau has requested the large observatories in the country to keep an astronomical watch on any further disturbances occurring on the planet Mars. Due to the unusual nature of this occurrence, we have arranged an interview with a noted astronomer. Professor Pearson, who will give us his views on the event, in a very few moments will take you to Princeton Observatory in Princeton, New Jersey. We return you until then to the music of Raymond Merkello and his orchestra. We are now ready to take you to the Princeton Observatory at Princeton, where Carl Phillips, our commentator, will interview Professor Richard Pearson, famous astronomer. We now take you to Princeton, New Jersey.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Carl Phillips speaking to you from the observatory in Princeton. I am standing in a large semicircular room, pitch black, except for the oblong split in the ceiling. Through this opening, I can see a sprinkling of stars and a cast of a frosty glow over the intricate mechanism of the huge telescope. The ticking sound you hear is from the vibration of the clockwork. Professor Pearson stands directly above me on a small platform, peering through the giant lens. I ask you to be patient, ladies and gentlemen, during any delay that may arise during our interview. Besides his ceaseless watch of the heavens, Professor Pearson may be interrupted by telephone or other communications. During this period, he is in constant touch with the astronomical centers around the world. Professor, may I begin our questions? At any time, Mr. Phillips. Professor, would you please tell our radio audience exactly what you see as you observe the planet Mars through your telescope? Well, nothing unusual at the moment, Mr. Phillips. A red disk swimming in a blue sea. Transverse stripes across the disk. Quite distinct now because Mars happens to be the point nearest the Earth. In opposition, as we call it. In your opinion, what do these transverse stripes signify, Professor Pearson? Not canals, I assure you, Mr. Phillips. Although that's the popular conjecture of those who imagine Mars to be inhabited. From a scientific viewpoint, the stripes are merely a result of atmospheric conditions peculiar to the planet. Then you're quite convinced as a scientist that living intelligence as we know it does not exist on Mars. I would say the chances are 1,000 to 1. And yet, how do you account for those gas eruptions on the surface of the planet at regular intervals? Mr. Phillips, I cannot account for it. By the way, Professor, for the benefit of our listeners, how far is Mars from Earth? Approximately 40 million miles. That seems a safe enough distance. Wait just a moment, ladies and gentlemen. Someone has just handed Professor Pearson a message. While he reads it, let me remind you that we are speaking to you from the observatory in Princeton, New Jersey, where we are interviewing the world-famous Professor Pearson. One moment, please. Professor Pearson has passed me a message which he has just received. Professor, may I read this message to the listening audience? Certainly, Mr. Phillips. Ladies and gentlemen, I shall read you a wire addressed to Professor Pearson from Dr. Gray of the National History Museum in New York. 9:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Seismograph registered a shock of almost earthquake intensity occurring within the radius of Princeton. Please investigate. Signed, Lloyd Gray, Chief of Astronomical Division. Professor Pearson, could this occurrence possibly have something to do with the disturbances observed on the planet Mars? Hardly, Mr. Phillips. This is probably a meteorite of unusual size, and its arrival at this particular time is merely a coincidence. However, we shall conduct a search as soon as daylight permits. Thank you, Professor. Ladies and gentlemen, for the past 10 minutes we've been speaking to you from the observatory at Princeton, bringing you a special interview with Professor Pearson, noted astronomer. This is Carl Phillips speaking. We are returning you now to our New York studio.
Ladies and gentlemen, here is the latest bulletin from Intercontinental Radio News. Toronto, Canada. Professor Morse of McGill University reports observing a total of 3 explosions on the planet Mars between the hours of 7:45 p.m. and 9:20 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. This confirms earlier reports received from the American observatories. Now, nearer to home comes a special announcement from Trenton, New Jersey. It is reported at 8:50 a huge flaming object believed to be a meteorite fell on a farm in the neighborhood of Grover's Mill, New Jersey, 22 miles from Trenton. Flash in the sky was visible within a radius of several hundred miles, and the noise of the impact was heard as far north as Elizabeth. We have dispatched our special mobile unit to the scene, and we'll have our commentator, Carl Phillips, give you a word description as soon as he can reach there from Princeton. In the meantime, we take you to the Hotel Marinette in Brooklyn, where Bobby Millette and his orchestra are offering a program of dance music. We now take you to Grover's Mills, New Jersey.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Carl Phillips again at the Wilmoth Farm in Grover's Mills, New Jersey. Professor Pearson and myself made the 11 miles from Princeton in 10 minutes. Well, I hardly know where to begin to paint for you a word picture of the strange scene before my eyes. It's like something out of the modern Arabian Nights. Well, I just got here, and I haven't had a chance to look around yet. I guess that's it. Yes, I guess that's the thing directly in front of me, half buried in a vast pit. Must have struck with terrific force. The ground is covered with splinters of a tree it must have struck on its way down. What I can see in the object itself doesn't look very much like a meteor, or at least not the meteors I've seen. Looks more like a huge cylinder. It has a diameter of, what would you say, Professor Pearson?
About 30 yards.
About 30 yards. The metal on the sheath, well, I've never seen anything like it. Color is sort of a yellowish white. Curious spectators are now pressing close to the object in spite of the efforts of the police to keep them back. They're getting in front of my line of vision. Would you mind standing to one side, please?
One side, there, one side.
Well, the policemen are pushing the crowd back. Here's Mr. Wilmoth, the owner of the farm. He may have some interesting facts to add. Mr. Wilmoth, would you please tell the radio audience as much as you remember this rather unusual visitor that dropped into your backyard? Step closer, please. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Mr. Wilmoth.
Well, I was listening to the radio.
Closer, please. Closer and louder, please.
Oh, pardon me.
Louder, please. Closer. Yes, sir, I was listening to the radio and kind of drowsy. That professor fellow was talking about Mars, and so I was half dozing and half... Yes, Mr. Wilmoth, then what happened? As I was saying, I was listening to the radio, kind of halfways. Yes, Mr. Wilmoth, then you saw something. Not first off, but I heard something. And what did you hear? This hissing sound like a... kind of a 4th of July rocket. Then what? Turned my head out the window and would have sworn I was asleep and dreaming. Yes, I seen this kind of green streak and then zingo! Something smacked the ground and knocked me clear out of my chair. Well, were you frightened then, Mr. Wilmoth? Well, I ain't quite sure. I reckon I was kind of riled. Thank you, Mr. Wilmoth, thank you. You want me to tell you some more? No, that's quite all right. That's plenty. Ladies and gentlemen, we have just heard from Mr. Wilmoth, the owner of the farm where this thing has fallen. I wish I could convey the atmosphere, the background of this fantastic scene. Hundreds of cars are parked in the field in back of us. Police are trying to rope off the roadway leading to the farm, but it's no use. They've been breaking right through. The car's headlights throw an enormous spot on the pit where the object's half buried. Some of the more daring souls are now venturing near the edge. Their silhouettes stand out against the metal sheen. One man wants to touch the thing. He's having an argument with a policeman. The policeman wins. Now, ladies and gentlemen, there's something I haven't mentioned in all this excitement, and it's becoming more distinct. Perhaps you've already caught it on your radio. Listen. Do you hear it? It's a curious humming sound that seems to come from the inside of the object. I'll move the microphone nearer. Now we're not more than 25 feet away. Can you hear it now? Professor Pearson. Oh, Professor Pearson. Yes, Mr. Phillips. Can you tell us the meaning of that scraping noise inside the thing? Possibly the unequal cooling of its surface. I see. Do you think it's a meteor, Professor? Well, I don't know what to think. The metal casing is definitely extraterrestrial, not found on Earth. friction with the Earth's atmosphere usually tears holes in a meteorite. This thing is smooth, and as you can see, of cylindrical shape. Just a minute. So something's happening. Ladies and gentlemen, this is terrific. The end of this thing is beginning to flake off. The top is beginning to rotate like a screw. The thing must be hollow. She's moving. The darn thing's moving. Unscrewing. Get back. Get back, I tell you. Maybe there's men in it trying to escape. It's red hot. They'll say it'll burn to a cylinder. Keep them back. Keep them back. Keep those idiots back. Look out there. Stand back. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the most terrifying thing I have ever witnessed. Wait a minute, there's something crawling out of the hollow top. Someone or something. I can see peering out that black hole. Two luminous discs. Are they eyes? It might be a face. It might be... Good heavens, there's something wiggling out of the shadow like a gray snake. Now it's another one and another. They look like tentacles to me. There, I can see this thing's body. It's large as a bear, and it glistens like wet leather. But that face, ladies and gentlemen, it's indescribable. I can hardly force myself to keep looking at it. The eyes are black and clean like a serpent. The mouth is V-shaped with saliva dipping from its rimless lips that seem to quiver and pulsate. The monster, or whatever it is, can hardly move. It seems to be weighted down by possibly gravity or something. The thing is raising up. The crowd follows back now. They've seen plenty. This is the most extraordinary experience. I can't find the words. I'll pull this microphone with me as I talk. I have to stop the description until I can take a new position. Hold on. Will you please? I'll be back in a minute.
We are bringing you an eyewitness account of what's happening at the Wilmeth Farm in Grover's Mills, New Jersey. We now return you to Carl Phillips at Grover's Mills.
Ladies and gentlemen, am I on? Am I on? Ladies and gentlemen, here I am, back of a stone wall that adjoins Mr. Wilmot's garden. From here I get a sweep of the whole scene. I'll give you every detail as long as I can talk, as long as I can see. More state police have arrived. They're drawing up a cordon in front of the pit, about 30 of them. No need to push the crowd back now. They're willing to keep their distance. The captain is conferring with someone. We can't quite see who. Oh yes, I believe it's Professor Pearson. Yes, it is. Now they've parted. The professor moves around one side, studying the object, while the captain and two policemen advance with something in their hands. I can see it now. It's a white handkerchief tied to a pole, a flag truce. If those creatures know what it means, what anything means. Wait, something's happening. A humped shape is rising out of the pit. I can make out a small beam of light against the mirror. What's that? There's a jet flame springing from the mirror. It leaps right at the advancing man. It strikes him on the head. Good Lord, they're turning into flame. Now the whole field's caught fire. The woods, the barns, the gas tanks, the automobiles. It's spreading everywhere. It's coming this way, about 20 yards to my right.
Ladies and gentlemen, due to the circumstances beyond our control, we are unable to continue the broadcast from Grover's Mill. Evidently, there's some difficulty with our field transmission. However, we will return to that point at the earliest opportunity. In the meantime, we have a late bulletin from San Diego, California. Professor Edelkoffer, speaking at a dinner of the California Astronomical Society, expressed the opinion that the explosions on Mars are undoubtedly nothing more than severe volcanic disturbances on the surface of the planet. We now continue with our piano interlude. Ladies and gentlemen, I've just been handed a message that came from Grover's Mill by telephone. Just a moment. At least 40 people, including 6 state troopers, lay dead in a field east of the village of Grover's Mill.
their bodies burned and distorted beyond all possible recognition. The next voice you hear will be that of Brigadier General Montgomery Smith, commander of the state militia at Trenton, New Jersey.
I've been requested by the governor of New Jersey to place the counties of Mercer and Middlesex as far west as Princeton, to the east to Jamesburg under martial law. No one will be permitted to enter this area except by special pass by the state or military authorities. 4 companies of the state militia are proceeding from Trenton to Grover's Mill and will aid in the evacuation of homes within the range of military operations. Thank you.
You've just been listening to General Montgomery Smith commanding the state militia at Trenton. In the meantime, further details of the catastrophe at Grover's Mill are coming in. The strange creatures, after unleashing their deadly assault, crawled back into their pit and made no attempt to prevent the efforts of the firemen to recover the bodies and extinguish the fire. Combined fire departments of Mercer County are fighting the flames, which menace the entire countryside. We have been unable to establish any contact with our mobile unit at Grover's Mill, but we hope to return you there at the earliest possible moment. In the meantime, we take you... Just one moment, please. Ladies and gentlemen, I've just been informed that we have finally established communication with an eyewitness of the tragedy. Professor Pearson has been located at a farmhouse near Grover's Mill where he has established an emergency observation post. As a scientist, he will give you his explanation of the calamity. The next voice you hear will be that of Professor Pearson, brought to you by Direct Wire. Professor Pearson.
Of the creatures in the rocket cylinder at Grover's Mills, I can give you no authoritative information, either as to their nature or their origin, or their purposes here on Earth. Of their destructive instrument, which I might venture some conjectural explanation. For want of a better term, I shall refer to the mysterious weapon as a heat ray. It's all too evident that these creatures have scientific knowledge far in advance of our own. It's my guess that in some way they are able to generate an intense heat in their chamber of practically absolute non-conductivity. This intense heat they will project in a parallel beam against any object they choose by means of a polished parabolic mirror of unknown composition, much as the mirror of a lighthouse projects a beam of light. That is my conjecture of the origin of the heat ray.
Thank you, Professor Pearson. Ladies and gentlemen, here is a bulletin from Trenton. It is a brief statement informing us that the charred body of Carl Phillips has been identified in a Trenton hospital. Now, here's another bulletin from Washington, D.C. Office of the Director of the National Red Cross reports 10 units of Red Cross emergency workers have been assigned to the headquarters of the state militia stationed outside Grover's Mill, New Jersey. Here is a bulletin from State Police. Princeton Junction. The fires at Grover's Mill and vicinity are now under control. Scouts report all quiet in the pit and no sign of life appearing from the mouth of the cylinder. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we have a very special statement from Mr. Harry McDonald, Vice President in charge of operations.
We have received a request from the militia at Trenton to place at their disposal our entire broadcast facilities. In view of the gravity of the situation, believing that radio has a responsibility to serve the public interest at all times, we are turning over our facilities to the state militia at Trenton.
We now take you to field headquarters of the state militia at Grover's Mill, New Jersey.
This is Captain Lansing of the Signal Corps, attached to the state militia now engaged in military operations in the vicinity of Grover's Mill. Situation arising from the reported presence of certain individuals of an unidentified nature is now under complete control. The cylindrical object, which lies in a pit directly below our position, is surrounded on all sides by 8 battalions of infantry, without heavy field pieces, but adequately armed with rifles and machine guns. All cause for alarm, if such cars had ever existed, is now entirely unjustified. The things, whatever they are, do not even venture to poke their heads above the pit. I can see their hiding place plainly in the glare of the searchlights here.
With all their reported resources, these creatures can scarcely stand up against the heavy machine gun fire. Anyways, it's an interesting outing for the troops. I can make out their khaki uniforms crossing back and forth in front of the lights. It almost looks like a real war. There appears to be some slight smoke in the woods bordering the Millstone River. Probably the fire started by campers. Well, we ought to see some action soon. One of the companies is deploying on the left flank. Quick thrust in will be all over. Now wait a minute. I see something atop the cylinder. No, it's nothing but a shadow. Now the troops are on the edge of the Wilmeth farm. 7,000 men closing in on an old metal tube. Wait, that wasn't a shadow. It's something moving, something solid metal like a shield-like affair rising out of the cylinder. It's going higher and higher. Why? It's standing on legs, actually rearing up on some sort of metal framework. Now it's reaching above the trees and the searchlights. Hold on!
Ladies and gentlemen, I have a grave announcement to make. Incredible as it may seem, both the observations of science and the evidence of our eyes lead to the inescapable assumption that those strange beings who landed in the Jersey farmlands tonight are the vanguard of an invading army from the planet Mars. The battle which took place tonight at Grover's Mill has ended in one of the most startling defeats ever suffered by any army in modern times. 7,000 men armed with rifles and machine guns are pitted against a single fighting machine of the invaders from Mars. 120 known survivors. The rest strewn over the battle area from Grover's Mill to Plainsboro, crushed and trampled to death under the metal feet of the monster, or burned to cinders by its heat ray. The monster is now in control of the middle section of New Jersey and has effectively cut the state through the center. Communication lines are down from Pennsylvania to the Atlantic Ocean. Railroad tracks are torn and service from New York to Philadelphia discontinued except routing of some of the trains through Allentown and Phoenixville. Highways to the north, south, and west are clogged with frantic human traffic. Police and Army reserves are unable to control the mad flight. By morning, the fugitives will have swelled Philadelphia, Camden, and Trenton. It's estimated to twice their normal population. At this time, martial law prevails throughout New Jersey and eastern Pennsylvania. We now take you to Washington for a special broadcast on the national emergency. The Secretary of the Interior. Citizens of the nation, I shall not try to conceal the gravity of the situation which confronts our country, nor the concern of your government in protecting lives and the lives and property of its people. However, I wish to impress upon you, private citizens and public officials, all of you, the urgent need of calm and resourceful action. Fortunately, this formidable enemy is still confined to a comparatively small area, and we may place our faith in the military forces to keep them there. In the meantime, placing our faith in God, we must continue the performance of our duties in each and every one of us so that we may confront this destructive adversary with a nation united, courageous, and consecrated to the preservation of human supremacy on this earth. I thank you. You've just heard the Secretary of the Interior speaking from Washington. Bulletins are too numerous to read and are piling up in the studio here. We are informed that the central portion of New Jersey is blacked out from radio communications due to the effect of the heat ray upon the power lines and electrical equipment. There is a special bulletin from New York. Cables received from English, French, German scientific bodies offering assistance. Astronomers report continued gas outbursts at regular intervals from the planet Mars. Majority voice opinion that enemy will be reinforced by additional rocket machines. Attempts have been made to locate Professor Pearson of Princeton, who has observed Martians at close range. It's feared he was lost in the recent battle. Langdon Field, Virginia. Scouting planes report 3 Martian machines visible above the treetops, moving north towards Somerville with the population fleeing ahead of them. Heat ray not in use, although advancing at express train speed, invaders pick up their way carefully. They seem to be making a conscious effort to avoid destruction of cities and countryside. However, they stop to uproot their power lines, bridges, and railroad tracks. Their apparent objective is to crush resistance, paralyze communication, and disorganize human society. Here is a bulletin from Basking Ridge, New Jersey.
Coon hunters have stumbled upon a second cylinder, similar to the first, embedded in the Great Swamp 20 miles south of Morristown. Army field pieces are proceeding from Newark to blow up the second invading unit before the cylinder can be opened and the fighting machine rigged. They are taking up position in the foothills of the Watchung Mountains. Another bulletin from Langham Field, Virginia. Scouting planes report enemy machines, now 3 in number, increasing speed northward, kicking over houses and trees in their evident haste to form in conjunction with their allies south of Morristown. Machines are also sighted by a telephone operator east of Middlesex within 10 miles of Plainfield. Here is a bulletin from Winston Field, Long Island. Fleet of Army bombers carrying heavy explosives flying north in pursuit of enemy. Scouting planes act as guides. They keep speeding the enemy in sight. Just one moment, please. Ladies and gentlemen, we have run special wires to the artillery line in the adjacent villages to give you direct reports in the zone of advancing enemy. First, we take you to the battery of the 22nd Field Artillery located in the Watchung Mountains. Range 32 meters. 32 meters. Projection 39 degrees. 39 degrees. Fire! 140 yards to the right, sir. Shift range 31 meters. 31 meters. Projection 37 degrees. 37 degrees. Fire! A hit, sir! We got the tripod of one of them. They've stopped. The others are trying to repair it. Quick, get the range. Shift 30 meters. 30 meters. Projection 27 degrees. 27 degrees. Fire! Can't see the shell land, sir. They're letting off a smoke. What is it? A black smoke, sir. Moving this way. Lying close to the ground. It's moving fast. Put on gas mask. Get ready to fire. Shift 24 meters. 24 meters. Projection 24 degrees. 24 degrees. Fire! Still can't see, sir. The smoke's coming nearer. Get the range. 23 meters. 23 meters. 23 meters. 22 degrees.
Army bombing plane V-843 off Bayonne, New Jersey. Lieutenant Boyd commanding 8 bombers. Reporting to Commander Fairfax Langham Field. This is Boyd reporting to Commander Fairfax Langham Field. Enemy tripods are in sight now. Reinforced by 3 machines from the Morristown cylinder. 6 altogether. 1 machine already crippled, believed hit by a shell from an Army gun in the Watchung Mountains. Guns now appear silent. A heavy black fog hanging close to Earth, of an extreme nature, unknown. No sign of the heat ray. Enemy now turns east, crossing the Passaic River into the New Jersey marshes. Another straddles the Pulaski Skyway. Evident objective is New York City. They're pushing down a high-tension power station. The machines are closer now, and we're ready to attack. Planes circling, ready to strike. 1,000 yards, we'll be over the first 800, 600, 400, 200. There they go! A giant arm, raised. Green flash, they're spraying us with flame. 2,000 feet, engines giving out. No chance to release bombs. Only 1 left. Drop them, plane and all. We're diving on the first one. Now the engine's gone. 8. This is Bayonne, New Jersey, calling Langdon Field. This is Bayonne, New Jersey, calling Langdon Field. Come in, please. This is Langdon Field. Go ahead. Army bombers in engagement with enemy tripod machines over Jersey Flats. Engines incapacitated by heat ray. All crashed. 1 enemy machine destroyed. Enemy now discharging heavy black smoke in the direction of
This is Newark, New Jersey. This is Newark, New Jersey. Warning. Poisonous black smoke pouring from New Jersey marshes. Reaches South Street. Gas masks are useless. Urge population to move into open spaces. Automobiles use routes 7, 23, 24. Avoid congested areas. Smoke now spreading over Raymond Boulevard. X2L, calling CQ, 2X2L, calling CQ, 2X2L. This is 8X3R, coming back at 2X2L. How is the reception? Okay, please, where are you? 8X3R. What's the matter? Where are you? I'm speaking from the roof of the Timeless building in New York City. The bells you hear are ringing to warn people to evacuate the city as the Martians approach. Estimated, in the last 2 hours, 3 million people have moved out along the roads to the north. Hutchinson River Parkway still kept open for motor traffic. Avoid bridges to Long Island, hopelessly jammed. All communication with Jersey Shore closed 10 minutes ago. No more defenses. Army wiped out. Artillery, Air Force, everything wiped out. This may be our last broadcast. We will stay here until the end. People are holding service below us in the cathedral. Now, I look down the harbor, all manner of boats overloaded with fleeing population, pulling out from the docks. Streets are all jammed. Noise in the crowds like New Year's Eve in the city. Wait a minute. Enemy now. In sight, above the Palisades. Five great machines. One is crossing the river. I can see it from here, waiting. The Hudson like a man waiting through a brook. The bulletin's been handed to me. Martian cylinders are falling all over the country. One outside Buffalo, one in Chicago, St. Louis, seem to be timed and spaced. Now the first machine reaches the shore. He stands watching, looking over the city. His steel, cowlish head is even with the skyscrapers. He waits for the others. They rise in a line of new towers on the city's west side. Now they're lifting their metal hands. This is the end now. Smoke comes out. Black smoke drifting over the city. People in the streets see it now. They're running toward the East River. Thousands of them dropping like rats. Now the smoke is spreading faster. It's reached Times Square. People trying to run away from it, but it's no use. They're falling like flies. Now the smoke is crossing 6th Avenue, 5th Avenue, 100 yards away. 50 feet. It's 50 feet. Operator 4 2X2L calling CQ. 2X2L calling CQ. 2X2L calling CQ. New York. Isn't there anyone on the air? Isn't there anyone on the air? Isn't there anyone? 2X2L.
You are listening to a timeless presentation of the original dramatization of The War of the Worlds by H.G. Wells. The performance will continue after a brief intermission. This is the Timeless Broadcasting System. As I set down these notes on paper, I am obsessed by the thought that I may be the last living man on Earth.
I had been hiding in this empty house near Grover's Mill, a small island of daylight cut off from the black smoke from the rest of the world. All that happened before the arrival of these monstrous creatures in the world now seems to be part of another life, a life that has no continuity with the present, furtive existence of the lonely derelict who pencils these words on the back of some astronomical notes bearing the signature of Richard Pearson. I looked down at my blackened hands, my torn shoes, my tattered clothes, and I tried to connect them with the professor who lives in Princeton, who on the night of October 30th, 2022, glimpsed through his telescope at an orange splash of light on a distant planet. My wife, my colleagues, my students, my books, my observatory, my world. Where are they? Did they ever exist? Am I Richard Pearson? What day is it? Do days exist without calendars? Does time pass when there are no human hands left to wind the clocks? In writing down my daily life, I tell myself I shall preserve human history between the dark covers of this little book that was meant to record the movements of the stars. But to write, I must live, and to live, I must eat. Find moldy bread in the kitchen and an orange not too spoiled to swallow. I keep watch at the window, and from time to time I catch sight of a Martian above the black smoke. The smoke still holds house in its black coil. But at length there's a hissing sound, and suddenly I see a Martian, mounted on his machine, spraying the air with a stream as if to dissipate the smoke. I watch in a corner as his huge metal legs nearly brush against the house. Exhausted by terror, I fall asleep. It's morning. Morning. The sun streams in the window. The black cloud of gas has lifted, and the scorched meadows to the north look as though a black snowstorm has passed over them. I venture from this house I make my way to a road. No traffic here and there a wrecked car, a baggage overturned, and a blackened skeleton. I push on north. For some reason I feel safer after trailing these monsters rather than running from them, and I keep a careful watch. I have seen the Martians feed. Should one of their machines appear over the top of the trees, I am ready to fling myself flat on the earth. I come to a chestnut tree. October chestnuts are ripe. I fill my pockets. I must keep alive. 2 days I wander in a vaguely northern direction through a desolate world. Finally I notice a living creature, a small red squirrel in a beech tree. I stare at him and wonder. He stares back at me. I believe at that moment the animal and I shared the same emotion, the joy of finding another living being. I push on north. I find dead cows in the brackish field. Beyond the charred ruins of a dairy, a silo remains standing over the wasteland like a lighthouse deserted by the sea. Astride the silo perches a weathercock. The arrow points north. Next day I came to a city vaguely familiar with its contour, yet its buildings strangely dwarfed and leveled off, as if a giant hand had sliced off its highest towers with a capricious sweep of the hand. I reached the outskirts. I found Newark, undemolished but humbled by some whim of the advancing Martians. Presently, with an odd feeling of being watched, I caught sight of something crouching in the doorway. I made a step toward it and rose up and became a man armed with a large knife.
Stop! Where did you come from?
I come from many places. A long time ago from Princeton.
That's near Grover's Mill.
Yes, Grover's Mill.
Oh, there's no food there. This is my country. All the end of the town down to the river. There's only food for one. Which way are you going?
I don't know. I guess I'm looking for people.
What was that? Did you hear something just then?
Only a bird. A live bird.
You get to know that the birds have shadows these days. Say, we're out in the open here. Let's crawl into this doorway and talk.
Have you seen any of the Martians?
Nah, they've gone over to New York. At night, the sky is alive with their lights, just as if people were still living in it. By daylight, you can't see them. 5 days ago, a couple of them carried something big across the flats from the airport. I believe they're learning how to fly. Fly? Yeah, fly. Then it's all over with humanity. Stranger, there's still you and I, the two of us left. They've got themselves in solid. They've wrecked the greatest country in the world. Those green stars, they're probably falling somewhere every night. They've only lost one machine. There isn't anything we can do. We're done. We're licked. Where are you? You're in uniform. Yeah, what's left of it. I was in the militia, the National Guard. That's good. Wasn't any war any more than there's a war between men and ants. And we're eatable ants, I found that out. What will they do with us? I thought it all out. Right now we're caught as we're wanted. The Martian only has to go a few miles to get a crowd on the run. But they won't keep doing that. They'll be catching us systematic-like, keeping up and storing us in cages and things. They haven't begun on us yet. Not begun. Not begun. All that's happened thus far is because we don't have sense enough to keep quiet, bothering them with guns and such stuff and losing our heads and rushing off in crowds. Now instead of our rushing around blind, we've got to fix ourselves up. Fix ourselves up according to the way things are done now. Cities, nations, civilization, progress, done. But if that's so, what is there to live for? Well, there won't be any more concerts for 1,000,000 years or so. No nice little dinners at restaurants. If it's amusement you're after, well, I guess the game is up. And what is there left? Life. That's what. I want to live. Yeah, so do you. We're not going to be exterminated. And I don't mean to be caught either and tamed and fattened and bred like an ox. What are you going to do? I'm going on, right under their feet. I've got a plan. We men as men are finished. We don't know enough. We've got to learn plenty before we've got a chance. We've got to live and keep free while we learn, see? And I've thought it all out, see? Tell me the rest. Well, it isn't all of us that were made for wild beasts, and that's what's got to be. That's why I watched you. All those little office workers that used to live in their houses, they'd be no good. They haven't any stuff to them. They just used to run off to work. I've seen hundreds of them running wild to catch the commuter train in the morning for fear they'd get canned if they didn't. Running back at night, afraid they won't be home in time for dinner. Lives insured and invested in case of accidents. And on Sundays, worried about the hereafter. The Martians will be a godsend for those guys. Nice roomy cages, good food, careful breeding, no worries. After a week or so about chasing the fields on an empty stomach, they'll come and they'll be glad to be caught. You've thought this all out, haven't you? You bet I have. And that isn't all. These Martians will make pets of some of them and train them to do tricks. Who knows? Get sentimental over the pet boy who grew up and had to be killed. And some, maybe they'll train to hunt us. No, that's impossible. No human being. Yes, they will. There's men who'll do it gladly. If any one of them comes after me, in the meantime, you and I, and the others like us, where are we to live when the Martians own the Earth? I've got it all figured out. We'll live underground. I've been thinking about the sewers. Under New York, there are miles of them. The main ones are big enough for anybody. There's cellars and vaults and underground storerooms, railway tunnels, subways. You begin to see, eh? And we'll get a bunch of strong men together, no weak ones. That rubbish out. And you meant me to go. Well, I gave you a chance, didn't I? We won't quarrel about that. And we've got to make safe places for us to stay in. See,
get all the books we can, science books. That's where men like you come in. We'll raid the museums. We'll even spy on the Martians. It may not be so much that we have to learn before. Just imagine this, 4 or 5 of them in their own fighting machines suddenly start off. Heat rays, right? And left, and not a Martian in them. Not a Martian in them, but men. Men who have learned the way how. It may not even be in our time. Gee, I imagine having one of them lovely things with its heat ray, wide and free. We'd turn it on the Martians. We'd turn it on the men. We'll bring everybody down to their knees. That's your plan? You and me, and a few more of us. We'd own the whole world. I see. Hey, say, what's the matter? Where are you going? Not to your world. Goodbye, stranger. I came at last to the Holland Tunnel. I entered that silent tube, anxious to know the fate of the great city on the other side of the Hudson. Cautiously, I came out of the tunnel and made my way up Canal Street. I reached 14th Street, and there, again, were black powder and several bodies, and an evil, ominous smell from the gratings of the cellars in some of the houses. I wandered up through the 30s and the 40s and stood alone in Times Square. I caught sight of a lean dog running down 7th Ave with a dark brown meat in his jaws and a pack of starving mongrels at his heels. He made a wide circle around me as though he feared I might prove a fresh competitor. I walked up Broadway in the direction of that strange powder that passed silent shop windows displaying their mute wares to empty sidewalks, past the Capitol Theater, silent and dark, past a shooting gallery where rows of empty guns faced an arrested line of wooden ducks. Near Columbus Circle, I noticed models of 2023 electric cars in their showroom, facing empty streets. And from over the top of the General Motors building, I suddenly caught sight of a hood of a Martian machine standing somewhere in Central Park, gleaming in the afternoon sun. An insane idea. I rushed recklessly across Columbus Circle and into the park. I climbed a small hill above the pond at 60th Street. From there I could see, standing in a row along the mall, 19 of those great metal titans, their cowls empty, their great steel arms hanging listlessly by their sides. I looked in vain for the monsters that inhabit those machines. Suddenly my eyes were attracted to an immense flock of black birds that hovered directly over me. They circled the ground, and there before my eyes, stark and silent, lay the Martians, the hungry birds pecking and tearing brown shreds of flesh from their dead bodies. Later, when their bodies were examined in the laboratories, it was found they were killed by the purifactor disease bacteria, which their systems were unprepared. Slain after all of man's defenses had failed, by the humblest thing that God, in his wisdom, put upon this earth. Before the cylinder fell, there was a general persuasion that in all of deep space no life existed beyond the petty surface of our minute sphere. Now we see further. Dim and wonderful is the vision I have conjured up in my mind of life spreading slowly from this little seabed of the solar system throughout the inanimate vastness of sidereal space. But that is a remote dream. It may be that the destruction of the Martians is only a reprieve. To them and not to us is the future ordained, perhaps. Strange as it seems to sit in my peaceful study at Princeton, writing down this last chapter of the record begun at the deserted farm at Grover's Mill. Strange to see from my window the university spires dim and blue through an April haze. Strange to watch children playing in the streets. Strange to see the young people strolling on the green, where the new spring grass heals the last black scars of the bruised earth. Strange to watch the sightseers enter the museum where the disassembled parts of a Martian machine are kept on public view. Strange when I recall the time when I first saw it, bright and clean-cut, hard and silent, under the dawn of that last great day. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm out of character to assure you that the War of the Worlds has no further significance than as the holiday offering it was intended to be. The timeless audio version of dressing up in a sheet and jumping out of the bush and saying, "Boo!" Starting now, we couldn't soap all your windows and steal all your garden gates by tomorrow night, so we did the best next thing. The world has been annihilated before your very ears and utterly destroyed my credibility. You will be relieved, I hope, to learn that everything is fine. So I say goodbye, everybody, and remember the terrible lesson you learned tonight. That grinning, glowing, globular invader of your living room is an inhabitant of the pumpkin patch, and if your doorbell rings and there's nobody there, that was no Martian. It's Halloween. Tonight, Fitton Theatre of the Words has commemorated the live performance 84 years ago from the great Orson Welles and the Mercury Theatre on the Air's adaptation of The War of the Worlds by H.G. Wells, the radio play by Howard Koch. Thank you and good evening.